Yo, what's up guys? Bill here from Classic Rock and Metal Review, here to lay another mandatory boot on you. This one by Metallica, No Life Till Leather, Definitive Edition. It is on the Zodiac label. They do nothing but great stuff. You get not one but two versions of, heavy metal's most famous demo of all time, No Life Till Leather, and also some awesome killer bonus tracks. We'll get into the whole shebang. First, if you guys can subscribe and hit like, that'd be great. Comments are guiding the material, so appreciate that. All right, so, Metallica basically forms in 1981. Lars is the founder of the band, undisputedly. As a child, he was raised by parents who were very into his father and grandfather were both professional tennis players in Denmark, and Lars was sort of striving to, follow suit. He was a very good tennis player himself. One thing that happens to him when he's at I think he's 9 years old, he sees Deep Purple live. That was sort of a big influence on him. He starts playing drums, that's when he was about 9 years old. When he starts playing drums when he's about 12 or 13. Moves to California in summer of 1980, so Lars is about 17 years old at this point. He's got music on his mind. He's also, like I said, what happens though is he tries to make the high school tennis team and fails to do so. Even though he was I think a top 10 player for his age group in Denmark, he did not make the high school team. So that sort of was a turning point for him. He just decided to just focus exclusively on music and forming a band at that point. He also sees the band Y&T, another Bay Area band, catches them in concert. That's influential on him. Also, of course, the new wave of British heavy metal is just, at its zenith at this point. He actually spends an entire summer in the UK following Diamond Head around. So, he's on a mission to form, a power metal band and wants it to just be raucous and kick ass, take no prisoners, and places an ad to find other players that are like-minded. And he does get it answered by James Hetfield at some points in the spring of '81, summer of '81. However, James is still with a band called Leather Charm at that point. They are in touch. Lars is also jamming off and on with a dude named Lloyd Grant, who we'll get to in a minute. The band does become official in October of '81. Leather Charm, that Hetfield had been in, breaks up. So the band name is next. I think it's in November of '81. A friend of Lars named Ron Quintana has a fan magazine, a fanzine going on, or starting up, and he asks Lars to choose a name for the magazine. He asks if he likes Metallica or Metal Mania. So Lars purposely tells Ron to use Metal Mania so he can take Metallica for himself. Stroke of, beauty there. So let's get into the actual CD. Like I said, it's on the Zodiac label. They do nothing but killer work. CDs, no CDRs here. You got age-appropriate pictures. This is the front, obviously. Here's the back of the booklet. Nothing written on the inside, but you got some pretty awesome wide group shot of the band with Dave. And we'll get into all the lineup changes. We got some killer, like I said, some great bonus tracks on here. You got two versions of No Life Till Leather. I'll give you another look at the CD itself. Just pretty basic, but cool. Behind the disc, you got the band acting a fool there a little bit. And then, I'll show you the back cover as we talk about the material. So first up, we're going to bounce around the disc a little bit because I want to keep it in chronological order with what was going on. So we're actually going to start with the last track, track 17. Such an interesting story here. A friend of Lars named Brian Slagle founded Metal Blade Records, and he wants to put together a compilation of unsigned bands called Metal Massacre, which of course, has like 20 editions by now or so. This is the very first edition. And Lars asked to be on it, even though he basically just has him and James at this point. Ron McGovney also had been in Leather Charm with James, but didn't join when James did, but did eventually join right around when the recording for the Metal Massacre album was going to happen, but he didn't end up playing on it. We're talking about right around March of '82. So it was the last song recorded for the album, so it's kind of like getting in under the wire. The song is Hit the Lights. Now this had been a Leather Charm song that James brought with him, obviously. Just find it really interesting. So basically on this edition, you got just Lars on drums, James playing rhythm guitar, all vocals, and also playing bass. Even though Ron had just joined the band, James has decided to play bass himself in the studio. And Ron was actually listed as a member of the band on the back of the album, I believe, but he was, like I said, didn't play on it. So the second solo, which is the longer of the solos on here, was actually recorded by Lloyd Grant, who I mentioned earlier. Lars had been jamming with him on and off for about 9-10 months at this point. I'm not sure why they just never decided to form a band. I don't know if Lloyd was just not really into what they were doing. Sounded like when he was jamming with Lars, it was a lot of Sabbath and cover songs. Nevertheless, there's a little bit of dispute. Did Lloyd Grant play both of the solos or just the second solo? I've heard both stories. I've read both stories looking this up. But Lars himself on the 30th anniversary concert of Metallica says himself when he brings Lloyd up to the stage that he played both solos on this version. So anyway, it's just really, what a great bonus track, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's just really cool. It's kind of got a bluesy flavor to it, the solo in this. Pretty awesome. But what makes it such a great bonus track here is that even by the end of the year, Metallica wanted that version pulled. So a new version of the song got put on the album with Dave Mustaine playing the solos. And so you just have this one little snapshot of Lloyd Grant with Metallica, which became sort of obsolete by the end of the year. Second pressing of Metal Massacre had a different version. The only reappearance of the song was on a 20th anniversary edition CD of the first Metal Massacre. So that's where Zodiac got this one from, so it sounds great. Other pressings had to be made of the album for not just the Metallica situation, but bands like Rat and Steeler had gotten signed, and their older record. I don't know if the new labels had rights to the music or something or other. Anyway, so like I said, it was a short-lived pressing that had this version of the band, just Lars and James and solos by Lloyd Grant. Ron in the band, but not playing on it. So great, bonus track here. So now on to, let's just go right to, like I said, it's chronologically speaking here. So this was Hit the Lights for Metal Massacre, recorded somewhere around March. Now we move forward to July 6, 1982, No Life Till Leather. At this point, the lineup is Lars, James, Ron on bass, and Dave Mustaine now playing lead guitar. He's not singing, which is really pretty interesting because when you first hear No Life Till Leather, it kind of sounds like Dave's singing. James is really just singing high. A lot of Diamond Head influence there, obviously. And this is such an interesting story. I mean, you got two different versions of this, and who even would have known? I didn't know until researching for this. So tracks 1 to 7 are the original master version, which apparently Ron McGovney, apparently two recorders were recording everything at once. One for Ron and one for Lars. Lars went and took his tape and got it sort of remixed and produced, basically. Ron just kept his raw the way it was. The running order on tracks 1 to 7 here on No Life Till Leather Definitive Edition is Ron's version of the tape that is supposedly just untouched, unedited, and the running order that the songs were recorded in. You have Motor Breath, the Mechanics, which of course became Four Horsemen later on Kill 'Em All. Really cool hearing it as Mechanics though, right? Because of course Megadeth redoes it again as Mechanics. So it's kind of cool hearing Metallica do Mechanics. Jump in the Fire, that song rules. Seek and Destroy, another killer. Phantom Lord, Metal Militia, and then finally Hit the Lights. So this is No Life Till Leather version number 1 or the original version owned by Ron. Now this is just a fascinating story about this how this demo, came to be. This was actually supposed to be a debut EP for the band. They were so raucous and rowdy live that a punk producer saw the band live and just thought that they were sort of like a punk band. It wasn't until they were actually recording No Life Till Leather that he decided that he didn't want to, press the recording. Now this guy's named Kenny Kane, High Velocity Records, a punk label. So literally in the studio, the band just said, okay, well then we'll just have to, disperse it ourselves, circulate it ourselves. It's just such awesome, raw, live energy. It almost sounds live in the studio, really, but I'm sure it was, being a studio, things were probably recorded separately. Who knows? You really can't tell. I mean, it sounds like live in the studio. It's just so energetic, awesome. We already talked about James singing. Dave is on here. Ron is definitely playing bass on here. Sounds pretty good to me. Of course, he's not Cliff Burton, but good enough. Cliff definitely took a lot of his bass lines for sure. Of course, he expanded on them a little bit. Dave's on here tearing it up on guitar. One thing that stands out at me the first time I listened to this was I couldn't believe how much Kirk Hammett copied, almost note for note, all of Dave's solos. Like all the solos on here, they're almost repeated verbatim on Kill 'Em All. And I just, it kind of lowered my opinion of Kirk Hammett a lot hearing this. That's just me personally. Like I said, I really was kind of hearing this for the first time when I just bought this last year. Other than one time in work, sort of half-ass paying attention, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. There's only some very minor differences from the versions on Kill 'Em All. They had these songs pretty well meted out. I would say Seek and Destroy is a little slower. Not that much, though, to me. Of course, you got the mechanics thing. But overall, these songs are the Kill 'Em All songs on all their glory. Definitely Ron's version, which are tracks 1 to 7, are just, more raw and unedited. The sound, it's kind of funny. It's like they sound like a lesser generation tape. So they sound a little clearer in that sense compared to the other version that we're going to get to in a second. But they, because they're not edited or mixed, it's just sort of raw. The quality is great, but the overall recording is just a raw, sort of live in the studio feel. All right, so next we go to tracks 10 through 16. This is the other version of No Life Till Leather. This supposedly is, the Record Store Day version from 2015, or Lars version as it's known. Now these, like I said, this is going to be a little less generation of a tape because Lars basically took his version, had to get it put onto another tape to be able to edit it and mix it, and then that got burned. So this is theoretically 3rd or 4th generation possibly, where Ron's is 1st or 2nd. But however, since it was mixed and produced, it is cleaner sounding, and it does have a little bit of just a smoother feeling, a produced feeling, not taking anything away from the amazing killer performances here. The song order shuffled, which, if you look on the original Ron listing, and then this one sort of represents a little bit closer to Kill 'Em All, but not necessarily. No big deal. Record Store Day, of course, 2015, which I do have up there. I just, now I'm tethered to my mic. I can't hold it up and show it off. I just actually bought that recently. I got a kind of a deal on it for $40, which I thought was pretty cheap, so sealed. Picked that one up finally. So this is really interesting. The original plan with the Record Store Day deal was to just put out the tape by itself as sort of like a collectible with a box set of No Life Till Leather to come out later in the year. Of course, the Record Store Day, I think, was April. It was supposed to be an expanded edition. It was going to be pressed on vinyl and CD, and of course, like the photo booklet and all that jazz. They were going to make a full, deluxe box set out of it. There was going to be 27 songs altogether, so I don't know if they were going to be collecting all of the Ron McGovney's garage demos. I'm pretty sure that would have been what they were doing. I think there were 3 different demo sessions recorded in Ron's garage, but not studio, so sort of just like live in the garage. But nevertheless, that would have been great, but it turns out there was some credit issues with who wrote the songs. Dave's disputing, I think, 2 songs especially. I know I read something where he credits some ex-bassist, not Ron, but a different guy, for writing Motor Breath. So, that's still lingering out there. I think at some point it'll get resolved, and probably fairly soon, hopefully. But for now, here's what we got. We got this amazing CD, I mean, I just can't say enough about it. It's great. It's like, Kill 'Em All is great, and this is just really cool, especially when you got Dave Mustaine on there. I mean, come on. And then last but not least, you got tracks 8 through 9. So, No Life Till Leather, July 6th. Let's fast forward to March of '83. The only 2 songs featuring Cliff Burton on bass, of course, Lars and James, and Dave Mustaine. So you got Cliff and Dave's only 2 studio recordings, known as the Megaforce demo, because this is part of what helped them get signed by Megaforce. Although No Life Till Leather sort of led the way, this was sort of just an exclamation point on C on that deal. They recorded Whiplash and No Remorse. So basically, on this CD, between No Life Till Leather and the demo for Megaforce, you get every song that was on Kill 'Em All, with the exception of Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth. So the Megaforce demo was recorded. Ron McGovney ended up leaving the band in December of '82. Cliff joined shortly thereafter, or quite literally almost the same day. Recorded at KUSF in San Fran. Was a radio station that had a recording studio, and they were playing Whiplash too. And that's basically the story with this. This is what I mean. Zodiac does such a great job with filling the space and like giving you bonus tracks on their releases. I mean, I never even heard that there were 2 versions of this demo. So you get both of them. You get the oldest Metallica song that's really rare to find. You get the only 2 songs with Dave and Cliff. Mandatory, just like I said. It's a story, guys. I mean, I can't recommend this one enough. I think I paid £22, so roughly $30 for this from my guy. I used one of the Japanese sites a couple weeks ago. They came through like gangbusters, 4 days. 4 days from around the world. I'm waiting for something from, 2 states away for 4 days now. So, all right, guys, I appreciate it. If you guys can hit like and subscribe, we'll get some more content up as soon as possible. All right, I'll catch you later.